10 News begins with breaking news.
The U.S. military carrying out a show of force, sending 2 Apache helicopters over the embassy in Baghdad as a warning. Good evening. I'm Steve Atkinson.
And I'm Kimberly Hunt in for Lindsay Pena. The move comes after hundreds of protesters attempted to storm the embassy. As ABC's Serena Marshall reports, the Pentagon is preparing to deploy additional U.S. troops to the region.
This is a security checkpoint to the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, set ablaze, smoke billowing from the embassy gates, glass smashed. Tear gas and gunfire in response. Just a pane of glass separating American guards from the hostile crowds. Angry after weekend airstrikes by the U.S. that reportedly killed 25 militia members. That was in response to a rocket attack in northern Iraq, which killed a U.S. civilian contractor last week. That attack led by an Iran-backed Iraqi militia, a U.S.-designated terror organization.
There were threats to the oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, and there were threats to our facilities in Iraq. We've seen them all play out, and the last one, unfortunately, resulted in the death of an American.
President Trump describing the attack as being orchestrated by Iran, tweeting, "We expect Iraq to use its forces to protect the embassy," and so notified. But the response by the Iraqis outside the embassy markedly different compared to earlier this year, where police met anti-government protesters with a heavy-handed response. This time, dozens of protesters made it into the so-called secure green zone, allowed to pass by Iraqi forces through a normally fortified section of Baghdad, right up to the embassy gates.
As invited members, not just our military, but our whole diplomatic presence is there at the request and the approval of the Iraqi government. They have an absolute responsibility to ensure that there is no breach of security.
Iraqi security forces eventually arriving, pushing protesters back. But now the U.S. military sending additional forces to Baghdad, Marines being deployed from Kuwait, Apache helicopters flying overhead, flares fired as a warning.
President Trump spoke with Iraq's prime minister today, and a State Department official tells us there are currently no plans to evacuate the embassy. Serena Marshall, ABC News, Washington.
And I'm Adam Merkusen in the 10 News Live Center. While there may be no plans to evacuate the embassy, we do know that additional troops are on the way. This being tweeted by the Secretary of Defense just a few minutes ago. At the direction of the Commander-in-Chief POTUS, I've authorized the deployment of an infantry battalion from the Immediate Response Force. Approximately 750 soldiers will deploy to the region immediately. Now, we know that some of that is from a Marine group that's headed out. These pictures just tweeted out by that Marine group. We want to show you some video of them as well. The video from the Department of Defense showing a detachment of Marines headed to Baghdad. According to ABC News, about 100 Marines from Kuwait arrived at the Baghdad embassy to bolster security. The Secretary of Defense says they have taken appropriate force protection actions to ensure the safety of American citizens, military personnel, and diplomats in the country. Of course, this is a developing story, and we'll continue to monitor it for you. Guys?
Just call 911. I've been shot, swear to God.
Dramatic pleas for help captured on a doorbell camera from a San Diego football fan when he was carjacked, kidnapped, and shot. New at 5, our 10 News anchor Vanessa Van Hefty is joining us with more on how he managed to get away. Vanessa.
See, the San Diego man, he was in Phoenix for the Fiesta Bowl when this happened. 3 teenagers robbed him, shot him, and left him for dead.
I've been shot. I've been shot.
This San Diego man pleading for help at a stranger's door while bleeding from multiple bullet wounds, all captured on a Ring camera.
Just call 911. I've been shot, swear to God.
This victim, identified only by his first name, Anthony, was in town over the weekend for the Fiesta Bowl between his home state of Ohio and Clemson. He was sleeping in his car when 3 teens held him at gunpoint, pushed him to the back seat, and drove him around for more than an hour, making withdrawals at different ATMs before dropping him off in this empty lot and shooting him several times. Anthony, still wearing his Buckeye sweatshirt, made a run for it, desperately ringing doorbells when he reached the home of a Phoenix area firefighter. He was skeptical.
Just call 911. I've been shot, swear to God.
Anthony's sister telling us over the phone her brother thought he was going to die.
Told him to keep backing up and pointing the gun at him, and then they said it's over, and he said just take me home, and they start shooting.
Gunshots, it sounded like 5 or 6 of them.
The 3 suspects, 16, 17, and 18 years old, were masked and wearing gloves. One already confessed to the carjacking, theft, and shooting.
And Anthony's sister telling me he was essentially tortured for that entire hour. She says physically he will be okay, but he is very traumatized. He is expected to come home to San Diego tomorrow. Reporting live from the newsroom, Vanessa Van Hefty, 10 News.
We do wish him well. Vanessa, thank you. A 10 News follow-up now on a sexual assault that happened at a local nursing home. The family of an 88-year-old patient is now suing the Balboa Nursing and Rehabilitation Center for $50 million. The victim claims there was inadequate security. Police say a 48-year-old homeless man, Lucene Arlene, broke into the nursing home in October through an unlocked door and tried to rape the elderly patient. Police arrested him last month. He is charged with rape, elder abuse, and other felonies.
We have new information about a man who was arrested following a standoff with sheriff's deputies. They say he was caught breaking into a home in Lemon Grove. 10 News reporter Rachel Bianco is joining us. Rachel, you found out the man is no stranger to law enforcement.
Kimberly, deputies confirm they have dealt with the man before. They did not go into detail. You can see some of the windows on the house are still broken. There's some damage inside too, but it's what the man was doing inside that is bizarre. The sound of a sheriff's helicopter could be heard throughout the quiet neighborhood. Down on the ground, deputies with long guns drawn surrounded the home on Colfax Drive. Shattered windows reveal how the intruder made his way inside. No one was in the front part of the house, but Gabby Gastelum and her family were asleep in the adjoining duplex.
They tell us that we have to get out because somebody inside in the house. So we were so scared.
After an hour of refusing to come out, deputies sent in a police dog. The man was bitten in the foot and finally surrendered. He was brought out on a stretcher. Gastelum shocked to see who was behind the break-in.
I was surprised because we never think that was him.
The man has lived right across the street from her for nearly 20 years. Deputies confirm the sheriff's department has a history with the guy. They've been here before, including last summer over a fire.
The last time he tried to burn the house, his house, and the police, they took him to jail, I guess.
Gastelum hopes he gets help.
He was eating a cake. He has a plate inside in the house. He was eating cake, and then he destroyed everything inside the room.
As he was taken away, he seemed unfazed. It was a bit hard to hear, but he says, see you later, maybe. He's now facing felony charges of burglary and vandalism and a misdemeanor charge involving hurting an animal, most likely that police dog. He's due in court later this week. Reporting live in Lemon Grove, Rachel Bianco, 10 News.
Well, lifeguards have shut down the OB Pier because of high surf. This is at least the third time this month the pier has been closed because of high surf. Earlier this month, the strong waves knocked off a railing, which has since been repaired. It's unclear how long the pier will be closed this time. The high surf is expected to intensify even more over the next few days. The surf is not the only issue that we are keeping our eyes on, though. We have been dealing with strong winds across the county, with peak winds exceeding 70 miles per hour in some areas.
Our meteorologist Angelica Campos is tracking those conditions for us tonight.
That's right. It got very windy this morning. Thankfully, it's looking much better. That high surf advisory will be in effect from Wednesday through Saturday. So those are the days to watch for high surf. As far as the winds are concerned, now they're back down to 28 miles per hour in Alpine. If you remember, at the same time yesterday, we had winds over 50 miles an hour there. And this morning, the winds averaged 55 miles an hour in Alpine. In North Descanso, 52, Viejas, 57. In Palomar Mountain, the winds got up to 68 miles an hour. And as we continue into the overnight hours, it's going to be much better, less wind, but it does get chilly. Temperatures for New Year's Eve will average in the 40s for most of the county, but in the mountains, colder with 30s. I'll pinpoint the next warm-up heading our way.
All right, Angelica, thank you. Speaking of those winds, this big rig was no match for strong winds in Rancho Cucamonga. It tipped the truck right over this morning. This happened on the westbound 210 freeway just south of the 15. Crews managed to pull it onto the side of the freeway. It does not appear that there were any injuries.
6 suspected gang members have been arrested in last month's deadly mass shooting in Fresno. On November 17th, the gunman entered the backyard of a home and then opened fire at a football viewing party. 4 men were killed, 6 others hurt. Police say the suspects went on a shooting rampage in retaliation against a rival gang. Police also seized more than a dozen firearms. The suspects each face several counts of homicide and attempted homicide.
There are new details about the man suspected of stabbing 5 people with a machete at a Hanukkah celebration in New York. ABC News has learned that Grafton Thomas enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2002 but was let go after a month just because of a fraudulent enlistment.
As reporter Stephanie Ramos explains, he's facing federal hate crime charges for the stabbings.
The man accused of stabbing 5 people in a rabbi's home during Hanukkah celebrations is now facing hate crime charges. Investigators say journals recovered from 38-year-old Grafton Thomas's home appear to express anti-Semitic sentiments and refer to the Black Hebrew Israelite movement, a group also linked to one of the suspects in the shooting of a kosher deli in New Jersey earlier this month. In his journal, prosecutors say Thomas wrote about Hitler and Nazi culture. On his phone, authorities say searches popped up for, quote, prominent companies founded by Jews in America and local temples.
We must continue to push back on anti-Semitism every chance we get.
Overnight, the Jewish community coming together at a rally to fight anti-Semitism in the wake of this gruesome attack. This new image allegedly shows the suspect entering the rabbi's home, where roughly 100 people gathered, many of them fighting back.
I came in, there was a small coffee table right where you come into the front door. I threw the coffee table at him.
After running from the scene, NYPD officers arrested the suspect in Harlem 2 hours later, saying he was covered in blood and smelled of bleach, recovering a machete and a knife from his car. Thomas's family, through an attorney, says he has a long history of mental illness and needs a psychological evaluation.
My impression from what I have read in my conversation with him is there are severe psychiatric issues. Whether those manifested in anti-Semitism at a moment, I can't tell you. I don't know. That's not what I heard when I spoke with him.
Thomas's pastor tells us they're all in disbelief.
It is very surprising. The last time I saw him, we prayed together, and his mother was happy that he allowed me to pray with him.
With Stephanie Ramos reporting, law enforcement sources also tell ABC News they're investigating an unsolved stabbing from November and believe Thomas may be connected to that as well.